Dalal Street ends higher on a range-bound session. Nifty, sensex and mid-cap scale new peaks in intraday trade. Metals and financials bat for the bulls, but FMCG plays spoil sport.
A bumper listing for Bajaj Housing Finance shares make their Dalal Street debut at a premium of over 115% over the offer price.
Gold is within touching distance of the $2,600 an ounce mark. The yellow metal already has scaled the high of $25.85 an ounce. Earlier, experts believe high interest in the physical market should keep the precious metal well bid ahead of the Fed meet. Well, a quieter day as compared to last week and last Thursday specifically, so maybe consolidating for day two. Friday was that kind of a day, and today again, not very much. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Markets Forward, your go-to program where we aim to get you everything you need as you prepare and look ahead to the next trading session. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleague Surabhi. Surabhi, hi.
Hi, Prashant. Well, not a bad start to the week, right?
Yeah.
Because the index level, small gains coming in, but individual stocks, so much flying around today.
Lots flying around and both up and down, and it was that kind of a day. So let me just quickly tell you, on the index it was 20-30 points higher. So like a Friday, it didn't look like at any point that the market's essentially going to take off in either direction. So more settled through the course of the day. Although, I mean, this slight recovery, repair in financials continues. So, you know, Shriram Finance, ICICI, Axis, Bank Nifty was up 0.4%, so much better than what the Nifty did in trade. So remember, Nifty Bank has not yet made a new high, but like the Nifty is already done. So that is still pending, and slowly it is coming back and taking out some important technical levels. Mid-caps were higher. Market breadth, though, was almost 1:1, and that kind of told you the story. So equal number of stocks up and equal number of stocks down as well, and on volumes on both sides. You know, so government companies were doing well today. CPSE, energy, a lot of overlap there. You had metals as a space which did well, and I think FMCG perhaps the only large sector which was down with a little bit of red by today's close. Surabhi.
Okay, well, absolutely not bad at all. And though the advanced decline line started merging, individually even stocks were really active, and we'll tell you a lot more about that as we go forward. While there was profit taking in the FMCG sector, housing finance was the dominating theme today because of the marquee listing that we had, and it played out as per script. Bajaj Housing made that stellar debut with a gain of over 130% versus the issue price of 70 rupees, and all the gains were absolutely intact. We'll just pull up Bajaj Housing. That was really in many ways the stock of the day, but the fallout on the rest of the housing finance stocks was actually pretty interesting. There was a sell down across the board, PNB Housing, Canfin Homes, and several other names, including some of the smaller names as well. And we'll talk about this as we go forward. But yeah, big day, and a lot of primary market action continuing today. Well, let's tell you what we are covering. Beyond, of course, housing finance, there's a lot more in store as well. We'll start off with the top movers and shakers. We'll have Vivek bringing us all the stock-specific action. And then, of course, it is Bajaj Housing that's going to be in focus. But it wasn't the only listing, remember. We had a cross list as well. There's also NTPC, which was in focus today. So we'll tell you more about all of these buzzing stocks as we go forward. Then we get to D Street Chatter with Nimesh. Today, he's focusing on India Shelter Finance and why that stock is in focus. And then, of course, towards the end, we'll get you all the key market events to watch tomorrow. But first up, all the stock-specific action with Vivek. Tell us more, Vivek.
Well, thank you so much. You did allude to, what you essentially call the stock of the day, and it has to be Bajaj Housing Finance. It earlier used to be Bajaj FinTwins. Now you have three stocks from the stable over there. So Bajaj Finance, Bajaj Finserv, while they saw a bit of profit booking, and like you mentioned, some of the other names, that were seeing a bit of a catch-up rally in the last couple of weeks, today saw quite a bit of a sell-off. But the one that stands out clearly is Bajaj Housing Finance. Now, amongst the other stocks, some of the stocks that did really well today were stocks that were exchanges. So BSE today ended higher on very strong volumes, up almost 18%. Along with that, you also saw some of the other listed exchanges doing quite well. Even MCX as well as IEX did quite well. Dixon Technologies, one of the other stocks, from the broad end of the market, did very well. Tie-up with ASUS, stock up at almost 7%. NTPC, like we mentioned, value unlocking is something that the street likes. Stock ended higher by almost 2.5%. All eyes will be on the NTPC Green Energy IPO as and when they file the DRHP. And amongst the broader end of the markets, some of the rise stocks today, names like KRBL, they did very well. Export curves were lifted and stocks cheered that. But on the other hand, like you mentioned, FMCG stocks today, the entire basket saw quite a bit of a sell-off. We're talking about import prices of a key raw material being hiked. So when you're talking about the FMCG index saw quite a bit of sell-off. Goddess Consumer, HUL Britannia, key input price, that saw inflation, and on the back of that, all of them down almost 2%. And housing finance companies, you alluded to some of them earlier, but have a look at the list. Even names like Saman Capital, Hudco, Canfin Homes, all of them today down in the dumps after the stellar listing of Bajaj Housing Finance.
All right, thank you very much for that. And by the way, we will talk a little bit more about these individual sort of listings. And of course, the big one which got all the attention was Bajaj Housing, but there were a few others which two others to be precise, which we will get to in just a bit. Anand Tandon is with us. Anand, thanks for waiting. Shilpa Rao, the Prabhudas leader, is now also joining in. Shilpa, thanks for joining in. Just a quick word on the price action, Shilpa. Nifty, Bank Nifty first.
Prashant, we have been talking about Nifty hitting 25,500. We were there almost today. And those levels protected, we will again see higher levels of 25,800 coming in very soon. Talking about Bank Nifty has given a decisive breakout today. And I believe the sustenance here will definitely see Bank Nifty heading towards 53,500 to 54,000. New all-time highs for Bank Nifty for sure now.
Anand, sort of a quick top-down view from you as well. We'll get rate cuts starting Wednesday. US growth, etc. We're not looking at a bad situation. So these cuts are not being demanded because of a weak economic situation. In that kind of a scenario, it should be net positive, isn't it? Especially emerging markets, etc.
Well, that's right. I mean, that's at least the theory. I've always maintained that the rate cuts any amount of data could have come through. Rate cuts would have come because we are in election season in the US. And you will have to cut rates before the elections. So that is definitely going to happen. The only question is 50 or 100. I would imagine, or 25. I would imagine 25 is where you're going to start. Will that improve the flows going out? Most likely, yes. However, India, unfortunately, is already priced to perfection. Therefore, we are likely to get less than our proportionate share. It doesn't mean we won't get our share, we'll get our share. But if you were to just look around the region, you will find that many of the countries just surrounding us are doing reasonably well and growing more or less perhaps in line with what you should expect India to grow in the next 24 months. And they are trading at probably half the valuations. So I think they will probably attract a little more amount of money. But that said, India will continue to attract its share, plus the local market has been very supportive, likely to continue to be so.
Okay. All right. Stay on, Anand. We'll have some more questions for you in just a bit, but let's get started with the analysis on the show as well. So we've been talking about Bajaj Housing Finance all the way, but hey, that was not the only listing today. We had two other companies listed, and they also managed a little bit of green, nothing as close to Bajaj Housing, but some green nonetheless. Hormaz joins in with all the action. Hormaz, busy day.
Busy day indeed, and if you have three listings and you have a listing like Bajaj Housing, it is only obvious that the other two are only going to be relegated to the background. So we will start off with Bajaj Housing, the kind of listing that we saw, 135% higher on a listing price of 70 rupees, days high of 165 as well, and it kind of justifies the FOMO as well, right? Because it had bids worth almost close to 3.2 lakh crore, and it shows in the price action which we had in today's session. Now on the valuation front as well, at the listing price, the valuation for Bajaj Housing stands at around 6.84 times price to book, which is way above its other listed peers, and at the upper circuit price also that goes up to 7.5 times price to book. So the gulf is even more when it comes to the other listed companies versus Bajaj Housing Finance, and it showed in the price action that you saw in the other housing finance companies today. Cross was the other listing. It listed exactly at its IPO price, managed to close in the green today, and even here, it's a relatively smaller company compared to its other peers when it comes to RK Forgings, Jamna Auto, annual revenue of around 600 crores compared to others which are between 2,000 to 4,000 crore. So a smaller company there. Even margins at 13%, lower than most of its peers, barring Automotive Axles, but still managing some gains from its listing price. And the other one being Tollens Tires, again IPO price of 226, listed at 227, managing to close just about 6% higher from its issue price. It's a leading tire and tread industry player exporting to 40 countries is what is highlighted, and involved in tire manufacturing as well as tread rubber manufacturing. So subdued listings, both managing gains, but the day undoubtedly belonged to Bajaj Housing.
No, absolutely. No doubt about that, Ormas. But thank you very much for reminding us and keeping these new stocks on the radar as well. Let me take that to Anand. Anand, we've been discussing, of course, Bajaj Housing. Give us your views there. And in case you had a look at the other two new entrants, both of these companies relating to the automotive component space. So any thoughts on those as well, in case you've had a look?
Well, I don't actually look at IPOs because of the fact that I prefer to invest in companies where we have some track record. So the short answer is no. The only comment I have on these on this so-called book build is that it's a bit of a joke to find that companies after book building are opening at 130% higher. I've always wondered, in fact, written about it as to why we should have an upper band on the book build. If you can have a lower band because you don't want to sell below a price, why not just leave it open and let the book go at a level wherever it has to? You won't get this kind of funny gains.
That's definitely a thought perhaps worth keeping in mind for those who govern regulation around it. But, that's the view there on some of the major listings today. Okay, let's quickly move on then. The other stock in focus, SEBI has disposed the NSE co-location case against former executives including Ravi Narayan, Chitra Ramakrishnan and Ravindra Apte. The market regulator cites lack of evidence and has found no direct or indirect evidence of collusion or connivance. Yash has more details. Yash, fill us in.
Well, Surabhi, big news coming in for the National Stock Exchange over the weekend. The market regulator SEBI coming out and saying that they've decided to close down the proceedings, close down its investigation against the National Stock Exchange and 7 of its executives, including Chitra Ramakrishna, Ravi Narayan, Anand Subramaniam, in the co-location matter. Now, what is the co-location matter? Back in 2015, of course, a whistleblower intimated the market regulator SEBI and informed them about certain brokers in its co-location unit getting preferential access and entry into the servers of the National Stock Exchange, resulting in big gains for these brokers. Of course, the matter broke out back then. The investigation in the matter has been going on. Various disgorgement notices have been issued so far, and now today SEBI has finally come out and said that they have closed down the matter. The reason which has been given is lack of evidence in establishing any sort of connivance between NSE officials and the broker, that was OPG Securities. But this is just one of the matter. Another matter of SEBI not looking actively at this matter and allowing it to happen is still being fought at the Supreme Court between SEBI and the National Stock Exchange. One matter being closed, the bigger matter still being pending. But this itself is a big development because, as we know, in the last few days, the National Stock Exchange has also filed for an NOC for its initial public offer, and this move would be viewed positively as a step towards that direction.
Okay. And a plate will come up which shows valuations, right? Yash, thank you for that. As Yash said, well, I think BSE jumped sharply, maybe excitement that it's one step closer, as Yash said, but there is still one big matter which is pending for the NSE before it hits the IPO road, like so many other large companies are doing. That's the valuation picture. The NSE price, the valuation has been computed with taking 5,500 rupees per share and earnings estimates from IIFL. So that's the picture. Sharp discount, naturally, to where BSE is now trading at. Shilpa, any thoughts? Either the listed ones is all we can talk about, MCX or BSE?
If you talk about MCX today had a very stellar run. Of course, BSE has also seen a very massive run. But talking about MCX, I believe, there's a lot of scope. Again, here you was, good to see that the stock will be testing 5,800 in a couple of sessions likely, as long as it is holding 5,500. So MCX is something I would keep my eyes on.
Okay, MCX is something that you would keep an eye on. Well, let's move on and talk about another one, right? This is a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. NTPC was up 2%. And we learned from sources that NTPC Green Energy is looking to file for an IPO soon. Vivek is here with what he's hearing from his sources. And of course, a little bit about the company itself, the renewable portfolio. Vivek, over to you.
Well, that's right. So NTPC was in focus, like we reported earlier today. We understand from our sources and also inputs from our Delhi bureau that NTPC Green Energy most likely will be filing for an IPO very soon. Remember, we've reached out to the management of NTPC. We are yet to hear back from them regarding this particular query of ours. Now, just talking about this is largely along expected lines. The management has been guiding the street in past analyst calls. And also remember, in FY24, the company transferred 2.9 gigawatt, almost 15 assets of renewable energy capacity for 3,400 crore to its subsidiary in FY24. In the Q1 con call, the management did not take any questions regarding this particular portfolio of the company, stating that they would answer it separately as it was preparing for the IPO of the renewable business. Now, talking about the total capacity, remember, renewables currently has operational capacity in the range of 3.3 to 3.6 gigawatt, and the stated ambitions is what we have to look at. Number one, remember, FY26, the company says they are looking at a renewable capacity addition of close to 11 gigawatt. FY27, the target is 20 gigawatt. FY32 plans to commission close to 40 gigawatt. And also what they're saying is that by 2032, 60 gigawatt is the kind of renewable capacity addition that the company is looking at. Along with that, 14 gigawatt of pumped hydro capacity will also be commissioned. Now, what is it that the street would want? Number one, what is the kind of value unlocking that NTPC can see? Also, remember, we are still to get details regarding the kind of valuation, what is the kind of dilution. In earlier interviews, the management alluded to the fact that they will initially look to sell close to 10% via the IPO route and then maybe go in for an OFS. So some details still remaining, but we understand that the IPO is soon around the corner.
Okay, got it. Thanks very much for that, Vivek. So NTPC on the radar. And of course, the stock really perked up after Vivek put out that story. It ended at the day's high, the biggest gainer actually on the Nifty. Now, Anand, the market loves all things renewable, green, EV, and we saw that enthusiasm play out, whether it's an Ola IPO or, look at a stock like Suzlon as well. It's been a remarkable turnaround story, right? So how would you approach this space of green energy, and would something like an NTPC, renewable IPO be of interest? Though I know I take your point on overall not dealing with IPOs, but generally, renewable energy as a space.
Well, look, there is no question that one is looking for renewable energy overall, right? At the end of the day, if you want to remove global warming or get it somewhat under control, you need alternate sources of energy. Now, with that large caveat, the question is what? So theoretically, you should be able to go down a nuclear route. However, there is just recently a book out by one Professor Ramana, who points out that, M.V. Ramana, who points out that, it is not actually safe, even though there may be commercial interests which are pushing it. So you are back to saying that renewable comes down to solar, wind, and water. Now, of this, water is a major problem in terms of large projects. But that said, we are having NHPC actually stepping on the pedal. And I think that is probably doing well because of the simple fact that if they were able to get up the capacity there, you will get a very steady source of energy supply. Both other methods, solar and wind, suffer from the fact that they are erratic and not predictable, therefore not suitable for base load. So you are back to gas. Now, with all those caveats, the reality is that you need all sources of energy. So from that perspective, NTPC's move to renewable is certainly something that one should be looking at. Whether you'll make a lot of money on it or not from the underlying assets, I am not so sure. Whether you will make money in the stock market in the current context, absolutely. You will get valuations which are way in excess of what it takes to actually set up the facility. And therefore, it would be a wise move for NTPC to release some stock in the market for a subsidiary. That way, both you raise the money cheap as well as the valuation for NTPC itself goes up. As far as the world liking things, we are a little behind the curve. EVs are a disaster in the rest of the world. Today, people around the world are having trouble selling what they produce. You look at the commentary coming out of Volkswagen, Tesla. The Chinese are taking them to the cleaners. The pricing at which they are able to bring out stuff is way lower. And we now have a situation where battery costs are likely to, Toyota's CEO recently put out a statement saying that, electric vehicles are out because of the new engines that they've developed. So I think we are a little behind the curve in India, but that said, make hay while the sun shines.
Well, Anand, thank you for joining us. Rounded comments there on that space. Shilpa, thank you for joining us as well. Appreciate your time here on CNBC-TV18. Just sampling of views that we got from companies we spoke with. So Muthoot Finance is the first one I want to lay out for you. Now, gold prices, remember, have been sort of hitting new highs, right? And Muthoot Finance said that rising gold prices have actually enabled their customers to borrow more from the same amount of gold which customers gave as collateral to them. They said, well, demand for gold loans is picking up across their branches. So that was some commentary. In terms of specific numbers, their stated AUM growth guidance is 15% for FY25. They not changed that, but they said that they may look to revise this higher after the next quarter numbers. They also said that on the net interest margin guidance, they will be around the 10% mark where they've always been. So that is Muthoot Finance for you.
Okay, well, let's look at Route Mobile up next. The company expects the second quarter to be better than the first quarter and is on track to achieve revenue growth of 18 to 22% this financial year. The company is expecting new products like WhatsApp, RCS to contribute 15% to overall revenues over the next 3 years versus the current contribution of 7%. On the recently concluded OFS, the management said that with promoter stake down to about 75% and SBI Mutual Fund acquiring more than 5% out of the 6% OFS. So that is on Route Mobile.
Well, we also had the management of Pokarna, and they told us that the Quartz business will grow between 30 and 35% in FY25, while the Granite business will see muted growth. The management told CNBC-TV18 that both Creos and Chromia will contribute to revenues from next year. Added that EBITDA margins may actually be higher than the projected range of between 30 and 35%. So that's a management commentary we had through the course of the day. We'll take a quick commercial break here. The Street Chatter with Nimesh coming up next, and we'll tell you what events to watch out for when we return. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're with us on Markets Forward. Well, it's time now for D Street Chatter, all the latest buzz from dealing rooms. Nimesh is joining in. Nimesh, not a bad day, lots of stock-specific action. What all did you pick up?
Absolutely. It was a very stock-specific day. The Nifty was quite flat through the day, and even the flow seems to be quite muted in today's market. But in terms of individual names, the first stock is India Shelter. That stock was under pressure after a large block. 6% equity got changed hands. I understand a leading venture fund was a seller in today's block. They own close to 20%. And some domestic insurance companies were buyers. So disclosures could be quite interesting there. The second name is SpiceJet. That's been buzzing for the last couple of days. In fact, in the last 3 days, the stock is up 20%. The volumes are on the higher side. I understand the company is very close to raising funds via QIP, which can open this week. Some large HNIs and some family offices are likely to participate in the QIP issue. The third name is Samudra Motherson. Even that stock was buzzing in trade, recovered from the day's low. I understand even in Samudra, the company is very close to raising funds via QIP, which can happen in a day or two. So again, that's the trigger as far as Samudra is concerned. And the last stock is IGL. Within the PSU names, IGL stands out for second day running. I understand there are very strong buy flows from larger HNI, so larger FI. So looks like some FI interest is back in IGL at current levels.
All right, lots of chatter. Anyways, thank you very much for that. And keep an eye out on some of these names. Before we wrap, here's what's lined up in terms of events. Vamakshi is here with details. Vamakshi, over to you.
Well, absolutely. It's expected to be an action-packed day tomorrow. On the domestic front, as far as the economic cues are concerned, we will be watching out for India's WPI data. The FOMC meeting, that is the two-day meeting, starts tomorrow. The decision, of course, will be out on September